Thanks, everybody. Welcome to Build. I'm your host, Ricky Camilleri, and our next guest is a legendary documentary filmmaker. He's been making films for decades now, exploring the criminal justice system, art, addiction, war, immigration, and now adoption. In Jon Alpert's new documentary, Finding the Way Home, he and co-director Matthew O'Neill tell the stories of 8 children adopted into loving families while also revealing some of the circumstances that one goes through in orphanages, often beset by corruption, abuse, and worse. Let's take a look at Finding the Way Home.
Copiilor la internate, dar le lipsea căldura de părinte. Am decis la asta că s-o iau în familie.
Muitas dessas crianças são filhas de pessoas que fizeram uso de drogas.
Bagay ko na pale de affaire orphelinat, we apprend yon bagay.
मैले त सोचे अब छोरो त पठाए
Tenga jala gua de lai nu abai.
The orphanage business is a big business. The orphans are like 8.
Donc c'est important pour nous d'éviter de laisser ces enfants vivre dans les centres. Les conditions sont déplorables.
Avancez. Ah oui, ça va. Il y a une activité tout fait.
From the time I married, I only want a child.
She said, I would like a parent. It is better for the children to be in home.
Да стана време родител беше направо избор между живот и смърт. Аз исках той да живее.
Ceux qui ont des familles devraient retourner dans leur famille.
This is after we rescued him.
Quebramos o ciclo sem abrigo na minha família.
Fostering a child is like your own child. I cannot live without her.
Everybody, please welcome the great Jon Alpert. Let's hear it. Sir, thank you so much for being here.
My favorite place.
Oh, that's nice of you to say that. Thank you. How many documentaries have you made at this point in your career?
Can't count.
It's been since, what, 1980 was your first? 80?
Oh, no, I'm older than that. We started out showing films from an old mail truck on Canal Street.
That's right.
I got the mail truck $5. Bought the mail truck. And so that would have been 1972. I can't do the math if you guys can figure it out, but it's almost 50 years.
Wow. Let's talk about Finding the Way Home. It's produced in conjunction with J.K. Rowling's foundation. How did you get affiliated? How did you start working on this documentary?
HBO and J.K. Rowling's have a nice relationship. I think of primary importance to J.K. Rowling's is her concern about orphans. I think it comes from who Harry Potter is and the experiences that Harry Potter had in the imaginary world, but in the real world, there are 8 million orphans in institutions around the world, and almost every single one of them is not really an orphan, and many of them are exploited and live under terrible conditions. She has the ability to do something about it, and she has been.
And when you got involved, what was the intention behind the documentary?
To help people understand the situation of orphans and to help everybody understand that if we can get them out of these institutions, it's going to be a better life for these kids.
When you said about, I mean, you have made documentaries that are both, beautiful and heartbreaking, and I think also at times you sort of dig in as closely as possible to the horror of a life that one is living in that moment. I mean, we were talking about Life of Crime Backstage a little bit, which is really almost without context, just like diving in and focusing on these guys who are living like that. What made you, with this specific one, by and large, focus on the benefits and the positives once someone is outside of the orphanage?
Well, I think when you make a documentary, you're hoping that the program is going to accomplish something. We don't make the shows just to make them. We make them because we want to see change. And this is something that can really change and help people's lives. If you can get these kids out of institutions, get them back with their original families, give the families the support that they need in order to stay together, I mean, you fix these kids' lives.
When we talk about original families, we're talking about not necessarily like the idea of a nuclear family. We could be talking about aunts or uncles or people affiliated with the family, correct?
Yeah, the case in Brazil is a good example. The head of the family is a grandmother. Her daughter became addicted to drugs, died on the streets. there was a cycle of addiction and orphanages that the grandmother was involved in too, because she was previously an addict. And the local social services organizations, supported by J.K. Rowling's charity, helped build this grandmother's life back together again, got her a job, got her detoxed, got her to the point where she could get the family out of the orphanages and bring them home.
Wow. The children in this documentary are beautiful and heartbreaking. How did you go about finding these stories and selecting them?
Working with the people on the ground in Lumos, J.K. Rowling's organization. They're working in around 20 countries, and we looked all over the world for good examples.
These orphanages that we talk about, I don't know outside of Oliver Twist if people understand what orphanages are like in other countries. America doesn't even have orphanages at this point, correct?
No, we've basically been deinstitutionalizing our orphans over the years. We've built up foster homes, but we've also have support services for families. I think everybody knows somebody who has been in an orphanage, knows families that have adopted orphans. It's touched everybody's lives in some way.
What is it about the institutionalization of orphans and orphanages that generally leads to some sort of exploitation or abuse or neglect?
Well, in some countries that don't have a robust economy, it's a big business. So Haiti, it's the fourth biggest income earner in the country. And
orphans.
In
what way?
So when they had the earthquake in Haiti, do-good Americans descended on the country wanting to help make things better. And they heard that there were many orphans, parents got killed in the earthquake, and they began handing money out to support these orphans. And people who had no income in Haiti said, oh my goodness, this is where the dollars are coming from, and they began starting orphanages. So they went from having 100 orphanages in Haiti to over 700 orphanages in Haiti. And many of these orphanages only exist in order to suck money out of the pockets of well-meaning people who come to visit.
So because of that, whether there are orphans or not, these orphanages need children.
There are actually traffickers and recruiters who scour the countryside and come to families that are in need, families that can't afford to send their kids to school, and say, you know what? If you let me bring your kid to this orphanage, nice clothes, nice food, good education, none of that's true. And the parents, hoping for a good future for their kids, watch their children ride away on the back of a motorcycle and often never see them again. And once they go into these orphanages, they get swallowed up into a system of exploitation. The well-meaning Americans from Minnesota in their yellow T-shirts show up. The kids are dancing and singing. They're contributing food. They're contributing money. The kids never see it.
Right.
It goes right into the pockets of these really, really evil people who are running these orphanages. And this is not only in Haiti, same thing in Nepal. Some of these kids are literally enslaved.
Right. In Nepal, you tell the story of a kid who was enslaved. He was basically he and 20 other kids, right, traveled to Kathmandu.
Correct.
And then while there, he was basically thrown into working at a hotel, washing
Yes,
dishes.
basically more or less handcuffed to the sink and had to wash dishes 15 hours a day, and in the nighttime was beaten by the owner of the hotel.
Oftentimes we think of these things as solely based in the country that it is happening and not part of like a global system of exploitation in some way. But child trafficking often, and I think with something like that, working in a hotel, being a part of the economy, it is a larger part of a greater system rather than just individually this one orphanage or this one little thing here.
Well, these kids can become commodities.
Yes.
And, they can travel, they're small. They can move from point A to point B rather easily. One of the evil people in Haiti offered to sell one of the young girls in his orphanage for a cell phone. So, I think you can make some excuses that the economies are bad, there's no way to earn money, but there really isn't an excuse for exploiting children. There's no excuse at all for that.
Yeah, I agree.
And we can all do something about that. We can support positive programs that actually give real futures to these kids. When you contribute to orphanages and you don't know what's going on in those orphanages, to some degree you are enabling a system and continuing the exploitation.
What did you learn from making this documentary?
I learned that these kids are really resilient, and I learned that once they get a chance to sit in the sunshine, they bloom like flowers, and it's so exciting to see.
Yeah, you have one of the last stories that you cover in the film is this wonderful little girl in India, who basically gets an incredible mother who's just looking to love. She says, "My husband passed away, and I had all this love, and so I found this girl." And she calls her mother, and she loves her incredibly. What is it like to film a story like that? It brought tears to my eyes watching the two of them.
Every time I see them together, I start crying. I actually saw them last week, and this young girl sang a song in honor of her mother and how much she loves her. J.K. Rowling was there, and everybody was weeping like babies. We all love kids. We all want to help kids, and when we see kids finally get the opportunity that everybody should have, we all feel warm inside. And in every single case, the future of these kids is a lot brighter because they were taken out of the institutions. Some of them are real challenges. The young man in Bulgaria has very, very severe disabilities. There was a very well-organized program in Eastern Europe of abandoning kids with disabilities to orphanages. They were taken out of the family systematically and put into pretty horrific institutions. This young man basically never left his bed for the first 15 years. The only thing he ever saw was this, looking up at the ceiling. And a woman came, fell in love with him, wanted to give him a future, and he's in a home now. With love, with walks, with friends. And when you see that, you want to help every kid have this opportunity.
You're wearing your DC TV shirt.
This is always over my heart.
Yeah.
And so you understand that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I wanted to ask you about that because I do, excuse me, we briefly touched on at the top of this, you showing your films on the side of a post office truck that you bought for $5. Mm-hmm. You've been making films for 40, 50 years at this point, as we said.
Afraid so.
Afraid so. But you clearly have the bones and the heart of a person who would do this whether you were getting paid for it or not. You have to do it, it feels like.
Well, I was a spectacularly unsuccessful community organizer. 10 blocks from here, down Chinatown on the Lower East Side, we were fighting for better schools, we were fighting for better housing, we were fighting for job opportunities, and failing spectacularly. Weren't making any progress at all, fighting against the Vietnam War. All you kids are too young. But when we began making films about these subjects, everything began to change. Very specifically, reform in the local schools because of a film that we made. Very specifically, the establishment of a community hospital, in part because of the films that we made. And all of a sudden, from being somebody you didn't even like looking at yourself in the mirror because you were failing at everything, you were accomplishing the very things that you wanted to have happen, and you were making your life in your community better because of your camera. And once that happens, you can never stop. And it's exciting to wake up in the morning. So we built this organization, DCTV. We're in an old landmark firehouse in Chinatown. It's on the corner of Canal and Lafayette Street, very close to here. Come there any day. You'll see dozens of high school kids learning how to do the things that we do, changing their lives. 100% of these kids, and these kids come from challenging families just like the ones in our film. We have kids that have been homeless their entire high school career. We have kids whose parents are in jail. We have kids whose parents are drug addicted. 100% of these kids go to college.
100% of the kids that you...
100%. Right. And do better in school than I did.
Did you not do well in school?
Well, we're right by NYU. I got kicked out of NYU.
For grades or for?
No. Actually, this was the only place I ever studied. I liked NYU. We were doing organizing, and they thought I was a troublemaker.
I'm curious. I hate to ask a cynical question because you're a man that actually creates change. But do you find that even in this day and age, when there is a lot of activism documentaries, activism narrative films, that films can still change or create change the way that they did at one time?
Yeah, for sure. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to do this. I wouldn't want to do this. We're doing another show for HBO. Make sure you watch this one. What time is this one on tomorrow?
This is on tomorrow night, and then I believe it's on demand or on HBO Go. You can watch it on Thursday. But I think this is on tomorrow night at 9 p.m.
Okay. So coming up on HBO is the continuation of the very first documentary we ever made. We made a documentary called Life of Crime, in which we followed 3 criminals from Newark, New Jersey, and we really follow them. I mean, we're sitting on their shoulder when they're robbing stores, they're taking drugs, they're going to jail, domestic violence. I mean, this is as raw. You guys have all seen Cops. This is crooks, okay? People want to be with the cops because it's safe, but
it's also pre-Cops, too.
This is pre-Cops,
years before Cops.
Yeah. And this was the original HBO America undercover documentary. It sort of set the tone for a type of documentaries that helped put HBO on the map. And we've been following these 3 people for 35 years. And we're going to end this story, but I don't want to give this away, but the 2 programs that we've done are the most widely seen programs in prison and in rehab centers because they are very, very effective in helping people change their behavior. Really? Yeah, absolutely. You go to anybody who's been in a rehab, they've seen these shows because they talk about them because it's very, very stark portrayal of life under the addiction to drugs and the consequences of that life. This is not a pretty picture. It's very sobering, and I get letters all the time from people who have seen these things, and it's changed their behavior. So this is what you're talking about. This is why we make the films, okay? And the ending on this concluding show is so unexpected and so inspiring that, like, I'm really excited about it.
Do you think that, as someone who's seen the first Life of Crime, do you think that oftentimes the response or what changes people is not watching these guys, watching their specific behavior, but how their behavior affects the people around them? You know, there's the women around them specifically, and the people who try to love them are the sort of most haunted and by these men and their behavior.
Yes, and the wide swath of destruction. There isn't anything that's romantic about this. I'm cool, I'm a criminal, I'm having fun, I'm taking drugs and stuff. All that is completely knocked out of anybody who watches this. You know, of course, you can't overcoming poverty, overcoming drug addiction, overcoming lack of opportunity in the United States is really, really, really hard, and not everybody can do it, but some people can, and these programs help.
How? In what way?
People sober up when they see this, and you know, in almost all cases, especially when you're dealing with drugs, it is a self-realization that if you do not change your behavior, you will die. If you do not change your behavior, everybody that you love is going to suffer. Mm-hmm. While you're in the throes of addiction, sometimes you don't realize that.
It's very hard to see.
But there are people, and these people are inspirations to everybody who do reach that moment in which they decide they will change their lives, and our program has been catalytic in many of those cases.
What film of yours has had the greatest impact on you?
The film that I made about my father. It was the hardest one for me to make. It came at a time of very serious challenge for our family, in which the golden years were not very golden, and my father was suffering from serious disabilities that were a real challenge to our family. And I thought that our family was dealing with it in a very heroic way that could inspire other people. But it was really, really hard to do that and to share what was going on in our family with the general public.
Yeah, what did that feel like as someone who has shared other people's stories for so long? And I'd imagine in order to share other people's stories, I do think that there is a level of remove that has to happen because you are behind the camera. You have to edit, you have to editorialize to a certain degree. But what was it like to suddenly have the story be you?
It wasn't easy. Certainly wasn't easy for my family.
Yeah.
But at some point, you're dishonest. If you can't take the sort of same medicine that you're asking everybody else to take. Yeah. And I felt, to some degree, it was my duty as an honest filmmaker to subject myself to the same type of examination that I would subject you to.
You know, I have lots of friends who are documentary filmmakers, and I've worked on some documentaries.
That's got to be a tough
to be
social
friends with.
situation for yourself. Yeah.
I try to get together with only one of them at one time.
Right,
I can't have them all together at once.
Yeah, we all hate each other.
But one of the things that I've always noticed is an incredible patience for the subjects, because oftentimes, whether you want to or not, your subjects become a friend to them in some way. How do you manage that?
Well, you actually need to like the people that you're following. And, you know, we have a joke in my family that I'm never at my daughter's birthday, but I certainly am at the birthday parties of the people who I'm filming, and I'm at their Christmas parties and at their New Year's parties and all the significant occasions that are momentous in people's lives. The documentary filmmaker is there and not with their own family. You know, there's sort of 3 secret ingredients in making a good documentary. The first one is time. I'm not the smartest person in the world, but if you devote the time, it's something that you can't rush. You need to be there when it's actually happening in real life. You can't phone it in. You can't have people talk about it. You can't have them act it out. You have to be there. So you need to spend a lot of time. Second thing is access. You need to be able to be someplace where other people aren't, because why would they watch your film if you can't show them something that they can't see? So you need time, you need access, and you need passion. Because it's hard doing this. It takes a lot of time doing this. And if you don't have the fire burning in your heart that tells you that it's really, really important to make this film and to show this, you're not going to spend the time, you're not going to fight your way through to the place that you need to be in order to have the film be a good film. So if you have time, access, and passion, and those things cost nothing. And this is why documentary filmmaking is the province of poor people and of filmmakers who don't have Hollywood budgets, but who have a fire in their heart. And that's why we love it so much.
Have you ever lost that fire?
No, not yet. Otherwise, I wouldn't be doing this. I would be sitting here. I mean, I really like it. And, you know, the nice thing is I wake up in the morning at DCTV, and I know the activities of our organization, especially with young people, is going to really, really help. My parents taught me that that's what we should be doing in life. I believe it with every part of my soul, and I like it a lot. Also, if you're so spectacularly untalented in every other endeavor, and you happen for some particular reason to be good at this, it feels pretty good.
Are you spectacularly untalented in any other endeavor?
Whoa. So, you know, you don't have enough time. I had one of the first food trucks that anybody ever had. What a disaster. I was a taxi driver. I could have been the worst taxi driver in New York City.
That cannot be true.
Absolutely.
I've gotten in a few cabs that...
I was a substitute teacher on Eastern Parkway, and I want to tell you, and the kids love me, but I had no idea what I was doing. Right. So I got lucky with this, and I'm happy every day. And when you can go all over the world, meet people and help them with your camera, it's a great feeling. That's why every day there are more and more documentary filmmakers. That's why all our classes are full. You know, we have classes for people who want to learn to do what we do. Classes are full every single day, every single night.
We have time for a couple questions from the audience. Who's the question?
Hi. Hello. You've been a documentarian for...
You jumped right up.
I did.
Wow.
You've been a documentarian for quite some time now, and I'm wondering, you know, as opposed to more narrative filmmaking, what is your favorite part of being a documentarian, and what's the most challenging aspect of being a documentarian?
Well, the tough part of documentary filmmaking is that you don't have the same control that you have in narrative filmmaking. You can't do things over. You can't write a different ending. You are a prisoner of reality. But in the same way, that's exciting. You know, I got to the point now where I don't like narrative films. I don't want to watch narrative films.
You've made one, haven't you?
I had, again, another spectacular failure.
Right.
So I was one of the first Sundancers. So when Robert Redford opened up his program to try to encourage independent filmmaking, I was one of the 10 directors that was selected to participate in this program. It was a wonderful experience. He chose me and brought me out to Hollywood to become the first Sundance filmmaker that would successfully have a film made in Hollywood. And I got to tell you,
what happened, Jon?
Hollywood is not for me. Oh, I love your film. One is stab in the back, stab in the. Oh, you're such a one. Stab in the back. I mean, it's really, really rough. And at the end of 2 weeks, Redford put his arm around me and he said, "Jon, this is not going to be easy to get this film made." It was about life in the South Bronx. Didn't have any white people in the lead. The police were the villains. You could make this film today, but you couldn't make this film 35 years ago when Sundance first started. He said, "It's going to take us 2 years, Jon. You have to stay in Hollywood for 2 years. You're going to have to go around to all the studios. It's going to take it's an uphill journey, but 2 years will do it." And DCTV was starting to fall apart. They were very dependent on the work that I was doing, both administratively and also with the films. And I had to choose between beautiful, bright lights of Hollywood and my real love back in New York City. And I said, "Bob, I'm going back to New York." He didn't understand this.
Really?
No, because he based his life around Hollywood. He's done all sorts of wonderful things, but it's Hollywood-centric.
He's giving you your shot.
He gave me my shot, and I walked away from it. And I'm really happy that I did. And I've had a couple of other failed experiences working on narrative filmmaking, and so I'm done. Do I think that I could have successfully made a narrative film? Maybe, but we will never know.
You don't even like watching them anymore.
I don't watch them anymore. You know, it depends. If like we did a project with The Rock. So now I've watched all The Rock's movies, and otherwise I never would have watched The Rock's movies.
Oh, The Rock.
The Rock.
Oh, sorry. I thought you said we did a project on a rock.
No,
and then you watched all of Rock's movies.
No,
I was
no.
like, this sounds like
that's interesting. But Jon really can make connections. No. So I was on a plane the other day. So what's that one, Will and Hobbs or something like that?
Oh, yeah, I'm sure somebody knows. What's that?
Where the Rock
Hobbs and
gets to,
Shaw?
Yeah,
right?
where the
Hobbs
Rock gets to go back to Samoa. Right.
Right.
Okay.
Do you like it?
I've seen, The Rock's really a good actor, and he's a very nice guy.
He's extremely charming.
Very, very charming. We did a project. I'm sort of avoiding that movie because there are movies that The Rock has done that I think are good. But we did a very nice project together in Florida at a boot camp for wayward youth. These are young felons who have committed very, very serious crimes and are looking at 10 to 20-year prison sentences. But they're allowed an opportunity to participate in a 6-month boot camp, which is really, really torturous. And if they get from the beginning to the end of this, they get let out of prison. And The Rock, who had challenges in his past, really identified with the troubles that these kids were facing. He liked the success. The program has a very high success rate. I was disinclined to like it because I'm not militaristic. I've been embedded with lots of armies. I've been in wars all over the world. And anything I can do to fight war, I'm there for. But this program works.
It's more about discipline
It's
or
discipline.
self-discipline.
It's really about, it's breaking the kids down.
Yeah.
And watching that process is absolutely fascinating to see these kids who are used to waking up at 2 o'clock in the afternoon after being high all night long, to see them 4 o'clock in the morning and doing push-ups all day long and eating square meals and very rigid discipline. But it's useful when they go back on the streets and the same challenges are waiting for them. They're very successful in leading better lives.
Wow. One more question.
Hi.
Hello. Where do you guys all come from, by the way? I mean, what are you doing here at this nice hour in the morning? What do you do in normal life?
I work in film.
And?
And?
Did your parents, when you told your parents, well, I'm not going to be whatever they really wanted you to be, and that you're going to go work in film, what'd they say?
Oh, they were supportive.
That's good.
Yeah.
Everybody else have the same experience, or? My mother admitted to me for the first time Sunday that she felt that I had actually made the right career decision. Took a long time.
Is this after
50 years?
50 some odd years,
Yeah,
of,
50
of,
years.
of chastising you? And
So she says it was good that I didn't become the lawyer that she wanted me to be. Sorry, and you were going to ask? Yeah.
That's so great. My question was if any significant storylines or scenes were left out of the final product.
Yeah, always. So where are we? So in Haiti, not Haiti. This one's Haiti, okay? We almost got killed. And so in another film, or let's say another filmmaker would have found this particular moment something worthy of inclusion in the film, but this film wasn't about us, and so it was gone. But I can share it with you. This gentleman had run a horrific orphanage in which he had 50 kids in 2 rooms and was just using them. He literally says, I use them as bait, and the rich Americans are fish. And I dangle them out there in order to get contributions. So he was shut down once because he was stupid enough to go on CNN about 5 or 6 years ago. We find him in his house, and he can't wait to bring us to his new orphanage, where he's got 45 kids living in utter squalor. And we tattletaled to the government. And we said, you're supposed to have this guy shut down. In fact, the enforcement system is non-existent. And they wouldn't tell us when they were going to shut him down. And we had to wait, sort of hiding in plain sight in a blacked out vehicle in front of his place on the day that we thought they were coming to shut him down. And we're waiting and we're waiting. The gangs in Haiti are intertwined with the orphanages because the money comes in and the gangs suck some of it out. They don't like it when you shut down their orphanages because you're taking money out of their pocket. They don't care about the kids. They also traffic the kids and put the women into prostitutions, and the boys become drug runners. So we're hiding. Finally, the cars show up. These guys all come out with machine guns, and they go and they pull the kids out of the orphanages at gunpoint and take them on a bus. And I want to get the shot of the bus driving away. So I've got one guy on the bus, Rosalino, who's got a camera, and I'm standing on the street in the middle of a crowd of 200 angry Haitians. So I say, Ross, make sure the bus stops at the corner so I can get on the bus and get out of here. Got it, John. Got it. It's a really nice shot of the film. You see the bus drive away, but it doesn't stop. Vroom, that driver's scared to death. He steps on the gas, and the gravel's spinning, and the bus takes. And I'm standing there like this, surrounded by 200 angry people, and the crowd starts to come in on me, and I'm there by myself, and I was terrified. All the guys with guns who could have protected me could care less. They all get in their car, they drive away, and I'm the only person left on the street. And I'm gonna go say it. And luckily, my friend was still in the neighborhood, and he came barreling through. The crowd all dove to the side. Door opens up, I dive in the car and drive away. So that's something that happened in Haiti. Thank
you.
John, how many times have you almost been killed making
a lot?
Yeah,
I don't know how many lives a cat has, but I'm like in double digits already. We could spend. I mean, the hair on the back of my neck starts going up when I tell these stories. Actually, me and my daughter. This is so stupid, but we were going into Afghanistan at an extraordinary
family vacation.
Family vacation. This is the jokes that we have, right? And we're going across the border roll the window down to present our passports, and like about 10 machine guns come in the window. And my daughter looks at me and she goes, Dad, why didn't anybody in the family try to stop us?
How old was your daughter at this time?
She was 21. Okay. And the same way the police and firefighters train their families and they sort of accept what is the potential danger every day, documentary filmmakers train their families. And it just sort of becomes, you're going to have to work on training your family if you're going to do this. But at that particular point, for the first time, I really began feeling guilty that I was being a really bad father, and that I wasn't protecting my child the way a father's supposed to. And it's sort of when my daughter and I realized that it was going to be her future, that she was not going to follow in my footsteps, and that she had to seek another profession. So there's a photograph of her in front of a tank. She's wearing a pink burqa. She's surrounded by a bunch of mujahideen that have their own guns. I said, let me take this picture because this is going to be the picture that's going to get you into law school. And it worked, so.
Jon, it's always a pleasure to have you here and talk to you. You're an American legend, my friend, and finding the way home.
A legend sort of implies like sort of over the hill, doesn't it?
I think a legend implies to me that you've made a vast amount of incredibly important work and done work that most people would not dare to do.
Well, it's nice of you to say.
And you've dedicated your life to
So what
help
it is it's proof that no matter how little potential you have, if you really, really work hard and you believe in what you're doing, that you can accomplish something. And if all you want to come to DC TV, you can see this in action every single day. At some point, this torch is going to get passed, and there's an institution and lots of nice people down there, and I'm happy to have anybody who wants to be part of it.
Absolutely. Finding the Way Home premieres tomorrow night on HBO at 9 p.m., and then you can find it on HBO Go the following day. Jon Alpert, everybody, let's hear it.
Appreciate it. Thank you.